What would life be like if the smartphone was not invented? A whole lot of responses here seem to dwell pretty heavily on a misplaced sense of nostalgia for social interactions. People still had phones and Blackberries. Some people would still be texting. The portion of people who doom scroll Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, or play Candy Crush would probably be less stuck in their phones. Talk would have happened, and we would not have freemium games since console and PC gamers would not have taken a 99-cent game seriously enough to give it any attention except as a browser game. End communication. Peaceful. No idiots texting or calling at all hours of the night. No stupid people making stupid videos of the stupid things they do. No apps for telling people how far they walked or how much altitude they climbed. People would start to actually do things that require them to pay attention to what they are doing. People would read books instead of watching the stupid videos see above. People reading would learn instead of putting every question on Reddit to be answered, because they are too lazy to research the question by reading about it. To all the people who blame phones for people not being social anymore. Do you people actually ever go out and see how the vast majority of people still interact with each other perfectly normally? Stop believing all the fear-mongering clickbait articles. Smartphones were inevitable. Computing on the go is simply too convenient. If smartphones specifically didn't exist, then something else would have filled the niche. In order for smartphones to not exist, you'd have to freeze technological and computing progress in its entirety. You can argue the opposite too. So not having phones could negatively impact their mental health, and some people are just naturally introverted, which wouldn't change even if phones didn't exist. There's nothing wrong with that. Plus, people would still find something else to keep them occupied and to allow them to avoid interacting with humans, e.g. reading books, drawing, watching TV, etc. The quality of life would significantly drop. Think about what you would have to do just to buy a shirt. Something you can do in about a few minutes today. 1. Look at your checkbook to make sure you have money available. Hopefully you have already balanced your checkbook properly. Point 2. Drive to a store. 3. Try on shirts. Point 4. If they don't have a shirt that you like, then drive to another store. Point 5. Drive home with your shirt. It will cost you time and money for gas car repairs for every item you need to buy. I think it would be perfect. The years immediately before widespread smartphone adoption were pretty much perfect technology-wise. You could have a navigation system in your car and a QWERTY phone for easy texting. The phones were internet capable for any sort of emergency use, but it sucked enough to not be addicting. You could spend hours doom scrolling on your PC at home. But when you left the house, you were free. There were magazines and TV in the waiting room. Social media usage would not be as prevalent and limited to browser usage, therefore, its impact on society wouldn't be nearly as significant. Misinformation campaigns, targeted advertising, conspiracy theories, the Trump presidency, and January 6th would have never happened. And that's just US-centric. Social media has been leveraged for misinformation campaigns across the globe, including fueling the Donbas conflict in Ukraine. Mobile phones have been around a long time, pre-smartphone, when they were big and bulky, and you had them in a bag in the truck for work emergencies. They didn't really affect your life other than making you safer in an emergency. I would gladly go back to a time of no cell phones, landlines, and a slower pace. Work was easier too. You weren't at the immediate beck and call of anyone. So I'm thinking back to the late 90s and the early aughts. Rest phone book with me. A book or magazine to read for entertainment. A checkbook, credit cards, library card and other organization ID. A notebook and pen, maps, written out directions, my pager, etc. It was a lot of stuff to lose. Now I just carry my smartphone and car keys. It wouldn't be so bad, especially if we still had access to the internet. If you're traveling, you can just print out directions. Concerts will also go back to the way they used to be, where everyone is just engaged in the performer and not worrying about recording a really good video for their Instagram followers. It would be a lot easier to make friends outside of your house. I'm 65, so a large part of my life was before smartphones. It was fine. People weren't distracted by being buried in their phones. You could go out to dinner and have long, entertaining, rambling conversations. The only positive things about cell phones was being able to call AA for roadside assistance when you broke down in the middle of nowhere or recording a crime. Once Palm released the Palm Pilot 7, a digital organizer with cellular data, the smartphone was inevitable. The digital organizer never morphed into the smartphone. They would have eventually evolved into phone replacements with apps like WhatsApp allowing you to make voice calls from your digital organizer. It was pretty great. We'd stop by a friend's place, and there was no guarantee they were there. Going out for a meal included having focused, engaged conversations. You'd find out about breaking news when you'd get to your destination, or when someone would burst through a door and announce it. We would still have PDA letters and pocket computers. Mobile phones will have still had better screens, but we might have stayed true to smaller phones and better pocket computers, with keyboards ... or Sony VoIP supremacy. Print mags and books would be doing well. Punctuality would be a thing again. In the 90s, if you set a time to meet, you were there 10 minutes depending on region traffic. Thomas guides and printed directions would still be a thing. Remote work wouldn't be as convenient. I ask people alive today that were adults before cell phones became ubiquitous. Honestly, I don't think phones are too much the issue, as we had a short period of the internet and heavy smartphone usage prior to the real drag on society, social media. The only thing I really miss from that era was not having conversations interrupted by the constant need for the other person to check their phone. But I solved that by putting a cell phone jammer in my house that can be turned on when people are being rude. I'd like my job a lot more. My upper management is furious when I don't respond to a text when I'm off within 5 minutes. I had one call my coworker drunkenly demanding at 10 p.m. on a Saturday night that we had to finish a PowerPoint by morning. A hell of a lot better. People used to actually converse when going out to dinner or say hi to someone. Kids weren't seeing their whole lives judged by others for consumption by a mass audience. Lots of bad things came with the cell phone. We also established that tablets, the iTouch, and iPod were not invented either. I don't think there would be much of a difference aside from the smartphone's functions being across multiple devices. I would sure be a lot more productive on things I actually want to do, and spend way less time reading work emails in my off time. I honestly can't think of a single actually positive change the smartphone has made on my life. I would be far less social than I currently am if I didn't have the shield of online spaces for interaction. I would actually have to learn to socialize with real-life people, and that sounds like my own personal hell. Probably be a weird guy that carries a laptop tablet around their knee everywhere with them instead. People used to carry around mobile phones the size of lunchboxes that could only do calls, I guess. It's not that crazy. Wearable computers would be a lot more common, or those little super portable computers, like those chunky electronic assistants that were popular in the late 90s, early 00s. I know I'd be toting one of those around. Your mobile phone would just be a flip phone with more space. SMS would still be the thing. Online stuff would happen at home on the PC. Maybe the phone would go as a mobile router, and you could use a laptop to surf. A lot less drama since social media wouldn't be as advanced. People would actually be out doing things more often as well. Don't get me wrong, I like smartphones, but sadly us humans have let it control us too much. Better socially. Yeah, we would probably still have Facebook and some other platforms on the computer, but there would be a time and place for it. Kinda like 2008, but with better advances in other industries. I feel lucky that I didn't grow up with smartphones and social media. I remember when it all took over when I was in college, and it definitely changed everything to pictures, or it didn't happen. Life without smartphones would be a disaster. How would I cope with the stress, anxiety, and boredom of everyday life? I would probably resort to drugs, alcohol, or self-harm. Or worse, meditation. We got along just fine before the smartphone. I definitely appreciate them, but sometimes I miss the good old days when we used payphones and answering machines and read books and newspapers. A lot easier and harder at the same time. It's the definition of a catch-22. So many good things and so many bad things. The smartphone is destroying our youth. I see it daily. It's so sad. Life without smartphones would be simpler. With more face-to-face interactions and less distraction, we might rely more on traditional methods of communication and spend more time outdoors. I'm more polarized now because there's too much propaganda everywhere to which I'm easily exposed. Surely there was propaganda before too, but it was definitely fucking limited or niche. I used to have to memorize a route before I started walking somewhere new. And if I wanted a coffee at 3 a.m. I had to walk my ass to the nearest coffee shop once in a snowstorm. The Umbrella Academy, the shows actually sets place in a universe where they are currently in modern times, but smartphones don't exist. It adds so much more stress to the story. Very boring and a struggle. My ADHD has been better managed since smartphones hit the mainstream. Also, I do most of my shopping online, which is beneficial to my SCPD and ADHD. I wish it hadn't been invented. Family members sit beside me deeply in conversation, texting all the time with friends when I am there in person and would like to talk to them. We would be enjoying a much slower pace and using maps and atlas. Up until then, early 2000s, it was common business etiquette to have 24 hours to respond to an email. Our bags would be full of things that a smartphone can offer. Music player, portable telephone beeper, calculator, notes, digital camera, flashlight. What else? It would be exactly the same, except you wouldn't feel anxious doing the same boring shit that we all did forever, and you might want to learn to read a map.